Hi, my name is Michaela, and I'm going to start Lauren and I's presentation on the theorist Benjamin Bloom. So first I want to give some background information. He was originally born in 1913 in Lansford, Pennsylvania. He was graduated in high school as valedictorian, top of his class, and he later went on to complete his bachelor's and master's degree in psychology within 4 years. He became a research worker for about a year, but then decided to move to Washington, D.C., where he met his wife and later got married. During this time, he met Ralph W. Tyler and decided to complete his doctoral degree with him in 1939 and did a lot of his research work, and a lot of his theories do come from the time that he spent with Ralph W. Tyler. In 1948, he met with college examiners across the country to come up with a common framework to identify intended learning outcomes. He wanted to find more meaningful and impactful ways to have learning objectives and have it be more standardized instead of in California, learning objectives look like this and mean this, and then a totally different meaning in North Dakota. So 8 years after his discussion, he came out with the Handbook 1, The Cognitive Domain, which I have the original copy right here, was published. But by the end of the 60s, it was known as Bloom's taxonomy. So some of his major ideas were that evaluations and measurements in education needed some reform. He suggested that, quote, the ability of environmental factors to influence change in human characteristics decreases over time as the characteristics become more stable. And that his central thesis was that most students can master material in school, but it all came down to the teacher's quality of instruction. He rated a teacher's quality of instruction with 3 critical elements, the first being clear communication about learning expectations and objectives, specific and significant feedback on all assignments, and additional time and assistance if needed and asked for by students. He published his last theory in 1984, and it stated that individuals who've achieved the highest level of achievement were able to develop capabilities fully, and that initial gifts do not determine success. Encouragement, nurturing, and training do. So this connects back to this first point that Bloom made, is that the environmental factor can influence human characteristics, but over time the impact decreases, and that's where educators can step in and have more of an impact by encouraging and nurturing those gifts and talents to see them thrive. So after looking at some of Bloom's major theories and ideas, I want to talk a little bit about what the implications this is for educators. So firstly, educators should understand they are essential in creating high-achieving students, and to do this, they have to use quality instruction, that everything they teach needs to be intentional and needs to facilitate a student's creativity and curiosity so that that student can reach their full potential. Second, learning objectives need to be clear and purposeful. The specific terminology that Bloom uses equates to a specific learning concept / goal, such as understanding, analyzing, evaluating, etc. Objectives should match exactly what the educator wants the students to know, so it should be directly based from the standards or whatever learning concept you're covering in your classroom. It shouldn't be seen as quote unquote filler material where it's just there to fit a certain format or just as a requirement. It should actually be intentional. And it needs to be more than a memorization tool. Your learning objective can be to memorize the multiplication table, but it should be more about how to apply and evaluate that information instead of just understand, as that's a level 1 concept. It needs to be more meaningful than that. Third, students' gifts and talents need to be nurtured to create success. So this relates back to the first point that educators are essential in creating and nurturing this success in students. You spend 6 to 8 hours a day with students in the classroom. So being able to nurture and tailor the classroom partially to their interest, like if you're doing a math problem and you know that you have a student who's really interested in robotics, like have the math problem relate to the robotics, but you're still covering that learning objective and still meeting the standards, so all is well. And this relates back to that world of possibilities in education. Classrooms look so different nowadays, and you need to really be purposeful and intentional about what you will do in your classroom to facilitate high-performing and excited students. If you're taking any of Bloom's concepts to heart, you would have the specific and significant feedback, give additional time when needed to students, and make sure that what you're teaching is applicable and it's not based just on memorization or filler material.
I'll be talking about theoretical concepts that Benjamin Bloom's came up with. So the most common one that everyone knows is Bloom's taxonomy, which was made in 1956. And this is basically a framework for learning objectives, but a formal definition is a classification system used to define and distinguish different levels of human cognition. So when he created this pyramid or triangle that you see here, it has different levels, and each level includes affective, psychomotor, and cognitive, which is basically affects how you think about things, how you react to things, and how you feel emotionally about things. So these all encased how students would feel and think and would react to how different things are applied within the classroom, and this really helped people in education. So another theory that he had was the theory of mastery learning, and this was made in 1668. So his idea was that students must achieve mastery and prerequisite knowledge, which this goes back to the taxonomy, where you can see that here you have to remember before you can understand things. You have to understand things before you can apply them, and so on and so forth. So basically this means that you have to understand the lower level thinking in order to get to the upper level. So you can see here that in 1956, this is the original Bloom's taxonomy, and then in 2001, it was actually changed. So here's some insights that I've collected from Benjamin Bloom's theories is that his taxonomy basically drives education, is one of the most important things that we can use as an educator. And as I stated previously, it uses cognitive, affective, and psychomotor skills, so it addresses all of those for students' emotional needs and cognitive needs as well. Some recommendations I would give to teachers is that they can use the Bloom taxonomy to create objectives so they know exactly what they need to teach students, so they don't have to do busy work and know exactly how they understand things. Another way teachers can use this is that Bloom's can help educators get a grasp of what students do and don't know. So if they don't understand something, then there's absolutely no way they'll be able to apply it. And something else that I would recommend is using all levels of Bloom's for all learners. So what I mean by this is basically creating a lesson that includes people who have ADD, ADHD, but also your learners who are more advanced or who are in like the specialty programs as well. Okay, now we're going to play a Kahoot review, and I'm going to take you through our questions. We're going to do player versus player. We're waiting on the game pin. And yes, I'm going to play by myself, just to show you the questions. Benjamin Bloom's first theory was about... So his first theory was about most students can master material in school based on instruction quality. So our next question, true or false? Benjamin Bloom believed talent needed to be nurtured by educators to ensure high levels of achievement. This was actually true. He thinks that everyone needs to use students' talents to make sure that they learn their best. To ensure success, Bloom's believed educators should have clear communication, significant feedback, and additional help. True or false? Benjamin Bloom has several educational degrees. The answer is actually false. He does not. He does work with education quite often, but does not have several education degrees. Benjamin Bloom's most well-known theory is about the theory of mastery learning, which also entices the Bloom's taxonomy. So this is just the fact that you need to know lower levels of his taxonomy before you can focus on upper levels. And that is our Kahoot. Great job, everyone. Thanks for playing. Thanks for playing our Kahoot, and these are our sources.